Coming up, the results of the U.S. midterm elections are slowly being confirmed, with Republicans set to take the House of Representatives, while the Senate is still up for grabs. Despite losing the House, President Joe Biden addresses the public, saying the giant red wave that was predicted earlier didn't happen. All 4 Korean-American congressmen and women are likely to retain their posts in the House of Representatives. Andy Kim will start his 3rd consecutive term, a first in 26 years for a Korean-American federal lawmaker. Plus, North Korea fires a short-range ballistic missile. The provocation happened just hours after the polls closed in the U.S. midterm elections. Good morning. Welcome to New Day at Arirang. Ballot counting is underway in the U.S. midterm elections as control of Congress still hangs in the balance. The outcome will also set the landscape for the presidential election 2 years from now. For more on this, we have our Lee Daeon on the line with us. Leon, do fill us in.
Toyon, for this year's midterm election, 35 of the 100 U.S. Senate seats and all 435 seats in the House of Representatives are up for grabs, and 36 states were electing governors. As for the Senate, it's a very tight race. As of now, according to the Associated Press, the Democrats have taken 48 seats, while the Republicans picked up 49 seats. Either party could secure a Senate majority with wins in both Nevada and Arizona, where the races were too early to call. Meanwhile, in Georgia, a closely watched Senate election will be decided in a runoff after both Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican challenger Herschel Walker failed to win an outright majority. The two men will square off again in the runoff election scheduled for next month on December 6th. In the key battleground of Pennsylvania, Democrat John Fetterman beat Republican Mehmet Oz, flipping a key seat previously held by a Republican. Meanwhile, the Republicans held on to seats in Florida, Ohio, and North Carolina. As for the House of Representatives, so far, the Republicans are in the lead with 207 seats, while the Democrats are on course for at least 180 seats. A party needs at least 218 seats out of a total of 435 for control of the House. Democrats kept seats in districts from Virginia to Kansas to Rhode Island. In a particularly symbolic victory, the Republican Party toppled House Democratic campaign chief Sean Patrick Maloney of New York.
Right, and U.S. President Joe Biden addressed reporters from the White House about the election results so far just moments ago.
You're right, Toyon. Just a few hours ago, President Joe Biden said that the giant red wave that had been predicted earlier didn't happen. Biden said that any seat lost by his party is painful, but also pointed out that his party lost fewer seats in the House of Representatives than any Democratic president's first midterm election in the last 40 years. While saying he understands the frustration of voters, Biden added he is prepared to work with his Republican colleagues. Take a listen.
Regardless of what the final tally in these elections show, and there's still some counting going on, I'm prepared to work with my Republican colleagues. The American people have made clear, I think, that they expect Republicans to be prepared to work with me as well.
Also asked how he interprets last night's results in terms of him seeking another term, the president responded that it remains his intention to run for re-election in 2024, and the results did not impact that intention. That's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more updates in a later newscast. Back to you, Doyan.
Thank you for the report, Leon. Now, in this election, New Jersey Representative Andy Kim has become the second Korean American to win a 3rd term in Congress. Alongside Kim, other congresspersons of Korean descent are headed to secure their seats as well. Kim Yo-sun has the details.
It looks like all 4 Korean-American lawmakers serving in American politics will be able to secure their seats during the 2022 midterm elections. This comes as New Jersey Representative Andy Kim became the first Korean-American to win a 3rd term in the U.S. Congress in 26 years. The Associated Press declared Kim's victory over his Republican challenger some 3 hours after the polls closed on Tuesday. Under the Obama administration, he served as an advisor at the Pentagon as well as the White House National Security Council. Before him, former Republican Representative J. Chang-jun Kim of California's 41st District served 3 terms from 1993 to 1999. Other congressional representatives of Korean descent, namely Michelle Steele, Young Kim, and Marilyn Strickland, also appear headed for re-election. Marilyn Strickland, according to AP, is leading the race to retain her seat representing Washington's 10th congressional district, having garnered nearly 57% of the votes. Republican Young Kim also won her bid for a second term in office in California's 40th congressional district. With this, members of the Korean American community have high hopes that their voices will be better heard within American political circles. Kim Hye-san, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has urged Washington to show, quote, unwavering support for his country until its territory is fully restored. Addressing the U.S.-based National Constitution Center via video link on Tuesday, Zelenskyy also thanked not only U.S. political leaders, but also every American citizen for their support for Ukraine. His remarks come as Americans took to the polls for the country's midterm elections, which may result in more power for the Republicans, who have been voicing skepticism on continuing Washington's aid to Ukraine. According to Seoul's military, North Korea launched a short-range ballistic missile Wednesday afternoon. This comes when already an unprecedented number of missiles have been fired by the regime this year. Kim Da-mi has the details.
North Korea's spate of military provocations continues, this time with a short-range ballistic missile into the East Sea. South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff said it detected a launch from the Sukchon area in Pyeongnam-do province at around 3:31 p.m. The missile flew 290 kilometers at an altitude of around 30 kilometers at top speed of Mach 6. Wednesday's provocation is particularly notable in that it came just hours after the polls closed in the midterm congressional elections in the U.S. But an expert points out that what many are worried as the North's imminent nuclear test may be on hold.
The results of the midterm elections may change the situation on the Korean peninsula, so the North may be on the watch for that and are postponing a nuclear test.
Seoul's military on Monday also kicked off its 4-day computer-simulated taeguk drills to beef up operational capabilities against North Korean threats. This is something that the North has slammed the South for, calling it an open provocation. Seoul's military says it's on a full standby while closely cooperating with the U.S. Japan also lodged a complaint with the North through its embassy in Beijing.
North Korea has rapidly escalated its provocations. Such unilateral actions are a threat to the peace and stability of Japan, the region, as well as the international community, and are absolutely unacceptable.
The latest provocation came just 4 days after Pyongyang fired 4 SLBMs into the West Sea over the weekend. In fact, last week, the North unleashed a total of 35 missiles as Seoul and Washington conducted their joint air training drill, Vigilant Storm. And for the first time, one of the missiles fired toward the East Sea landed in international waters south of the North Limit Line. That's the de facto maritime border between the two Koreas. The South Korean authorities sounded air raid sirens on Ulleung-do also for the first time. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Satellite imagery shows the North Korean regime is continuing fissile material production at the Yongbyon Nuclear Scientific Research Center. According to 38 North, vehicles and personnel continue to move about the complex. Activity detected at the reactor is at relatively normal levels, including continued water discharge into the Guryong River, indicating the reactor has been operational since July 2021. The U.S.-based North Korean monitoring website also mentioned that new buildings are added. They could be the regime's systematic approach to upgrading key facilities. Over the next decade, South Korea aims to transition into a hydrogen economy. Plans include having some 30,000 green vehicles powered by the energy source hitting the roads in the next decade, as well as increasing production distribution channels and technological capacities. Our Lee Kyung-eun zooms in on the goals.
At the heart of the global carbon neutrality trend is intensifying competition to develop hydrogen as the new clean energy. And South Korea Wednesday joined some 40 countries that outline strategies to boost the hydrogen economy, which is gaining more significance in the wake of energy supply disruptions caused by the Ukraine war.
In order to become a leading country in the era of the hydrogen economy, the new government has set the goal of fostering the world's best, and it will push for the policies needed to achieve that.
As the first step for the transition, the government will boost domestic demand for hydrogen, starting with the mobility industry. Right now, there are only around 200 commercialized hydrogen vehicles on the roads in South Korea. And all the current hydrogen charging stations are mostly for compressed gas. But by 2030, the government aims to have 30,000 hydrogen cars in the country and 70 charging stations that store liquid hydrogen, which compared to gas is safer and can be stored in larger quantities. It will also install more energy superstations where traditional gas, electricity, and hydrogen can be recharged at the same spot. And by 2036, hydrogen is expected to take up 7.1% of the nation's energy development. All of this is expected to have an economic effect of some $35 billion, create 100,000 jobs, and reduce 28 million tons of greenhouse emissions by 2030. For the expected rise in demand, the government will ramp up production using nuclear power, install a large-scale liquid hydrogen plant, and expand distribution channels. It will also scrap regulations and increase subsidies with the aim of nurturing 600 hydrogen-related farms at home by 2030. 이경은, Arirang News.
The captain of South Korea's men's national football team, Heung-min, says he's doing everything to be ready for the World Cup, even if there's only a 1% chance of being able to play. On Wednesday night, Son made his first public comment since his surgery last week. Taking to social media, he thanked fans for their support, saying the World Cup is his dream and that he won't miss it for the world. He added that the mask he will potentially need is nothing compared to the mask that everyone has been wearing for the past 2 years of the pandemic. Tottenham star forward sustained a fracture around his left eye during a Champions League tie against Marseille on November 2nd, giving fans of the Taeguk Warriors an anxious wait with the tournament less than 2 weeks away. Now, it's been nearly 9 months since Russia's invasion of Ukraine began. Since then, the heat of the war continues despite global efforts to support Ukraine's defense as well as promote peace talks between the two countries. For more updates and what we can expect from the war, we have Christopher Hartwell, Professor of International Business Policy at Zaw School of Management and Law, joining us from Chicago. Good evening, Professor.
Good morning.
So first, how will U.S. midterm elections affect the war in Ukraine?
Well, Ukraine really wasn't a major factor, I think, in the midterm elections. You had some people from kind of the far left, the House Progressive Caucus, all Democrats, very, very far left, who were kind of caught out with this letter on how Ukraine should be negotiating with Putin. On the other hand, on the far right, you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is saying that there will not be one more cent for Ukraine if Republicans take back the House. So you have the two extremes, just in kind of your horseshoe theory, where the far left and the far right seem to agree on things. But when it came to the middle, there really wasn't a lot of talk of kind of Ukraine and what was being done. Midterms were focused almost exclusively on domestic issues, on inflation, on COVID-19, on Biden, on abortion, on all of these other things. So Ukraine really didn't factor into it. So I don't think there's really going to be much change now, even if the House flips to the Republicans and possibly the Senate as well.
Right. And now President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has eased the preconditions when it comes to starting a peace talk. And those include restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity,
and the punishment of war crimes and reparations, among others. Do you think that this means that there's a possibility of peace talks starting now?
Well, I think Zelenskyy is in a very, very good position when it comes to kind of Russia's current status. Russia says that it is withdrawing from Kherson. Now we see that Ukrainian troops are advancing on it. There's probably still going to be many days of fighting, depending on what's actually happening out there. But in reality, Ukraine has, especially with kind of the late summer offensive outside of Kharkiv, have shown that they have the upper hand, that they have the momentum kind of going forward. Realistically, the only way that Zelenskyy was going to have this full slate of reparations and war criminals was to be able to march on Moscow, to have a thoroughly demoralized, defeated, and conquered Russia. And that wasn't going to happen without substantial Western support. I don't think that would even happen anyway. So the preconditions kind of coming down now are a bit more realistic. But so long as Russia is still on Ukrainian territory, I don't think there will be any progress, because Ukrainians will not stand for it.
Right, and as you said, so long as Russians are in Ukrainian territory. Digging into that, does Russia have the firepower to continue the war effort right now? If it's true that they needed supplies from countries like North Korea, is that a sign that they might be running low on ammo?
Well, Russia has much more industrial might than Ukraine does. I mean, just by dint of the kind of size of its economy, as many people it has, etc. But what the war has shown, and I think NATO has learned this lesson, is that production matters. Being able to mobilize the production lines and the kind of cronyist, oligarchic run economy that Putin has instituted over the past 2 decades is very, very bad at kind of mobilizing these production lines. So they've had to look elsewhere. Iran, for example, Iranian drones have been kind of the latest thing in terms of battlefield casualties, and not even battlefield, civilian casualties being used against Kiev, being used against Ukrainian cities. North Korea as well. Russia is turning to North Korea to kind of get their munitions to be able to be compatible, first off, with their kind of Soviet-era weaponry, but also to kind of fill the gaps. Over the long haul, Russia should have the ability to have the munitions, and Ukraine is still reliant on a Western lifeline. But that being said, right now, Russia has been using advanced technology and throwing it at civilian infrastructure. This is not a good, economical, or efficient use of the munitions they have.
Well, thank you so much for your insights today, and I hope you have a great evening, Professor.
Thank you.
For a look at the news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley, as always, standing by at the Arirang newsroom. Good morning.
Good morning, Doyon.
Now let's start in Nepal, where an earthquake has killed 6 people.
Well, that is right. The 5.6 magnitude tremor struck Doti district in western Nepal in the early hours of Wednesday morning, local time. Now, the earthquake has killed at least 6 people and injured 5, with 2 of them in critical condition. Search and rescue operations are ongoing following the collapse of 8 houses, and 2 people previously reported missing were safely rescued. Now, reports say further casualties are not expected as the earthquake struck a relatively unpopulated area. Now, this comes after nearly 9,000 people were killed across 2 large earthquakes back in 2015. Now, turning over to tech news, Facebook's parent company Meta is laying off over 11,000 employees. The announcement made by CEO Mark Zuckerberg on Wednesday sees a 13% reduction of the company's workforce. The announcement also said that fewer employees will be hired in 2023, alongside a hiring freeze for the first quarter. The move comes 1 month after the company said profits were half of what they were in 2021, amid a second quarterly revenue decline. The tech giant has also made risky financial bets developing its metaverse, which it sees as the future of the internet. Meta's value has plummeted to $250 billion from its previous high of $1 trillion. Meanwhile, other tech firms have cut jobs recently as they battle recession fears, rising interest rates, and inflation. Now turning to the US, where President Joe Biden has expressed hopes of negotiating a release for WNBA star Brittany Griner. Speaking at a news conference on Wednesday, Biden said that since the US midterm elections are over, he hopes Putin is ready to discuss, quote, more seriously, a prisoner exchange. Griner earlier in the day was sent to a Russian penal colony to serve out her 9-year sentence. This comes after a Russian court rejected the pro-basketballer's appeal to overturn her conviction on drug and smuggling charges. The 31-year-old athlete was arrested in February at Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport after police found vape canisters containing cannabis oil in her luggage. And in our final story, legendary Brazilian singer Costa has died at the age of 77. While the cause of her death on Wednesday has not been disclosed, it comes after a series of concert cancellations due to a nasal operation. The singer had planned to return to the stage in December. Costa made her name known in the 1960s as a key figure in the Tropicalia, a Brazilian artistic movement that merged both domestic and foreign traditions and styles. Born in 1945 in the Brazilian city of Salvador, she released her first album, Domingo, in 1967. The singer was given a Latin Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011.
Good morning. Most parts of the Korean peninsula are on high alert over ultrafine dust, with the season's first ultrafine dust advisory issued here in Seoul, Gyeonggi-do, and Chungcheong-namdo provinces. So please wear a face mask that can block ultrafine dust today. And it looks to be a very warm day to be the start of mid-November. Temperatures will be well above normal for this time of year, hovering around 20 degrees Celsius this afternoon. But try to avoid outdoor activities at all costs due to that toxic smog today. Afternoon highs in most areas will be about 5 degrees higher than seasonal averages. Seoul seeing a high of 19 degrees Celsius, Daegu topping out at 20 degrees, Jeju at 21 degrees under partly sunny skies, while Jeju will be seeing up to 40 millimeters of rainfall into tomorrow. Now, dust levels will remain bad through tomorrow in the capital region with more warm weather. That nationwide rain is in the forecast this weekend, which will bring much chillier air to the country next week. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
And that wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for our Friday's edition at the same time. Please stay with Arirang News though for more updates throughout the day. Have a lovely day or evening wherever you are, and take care.
Waste of resources, greenhouse gas emissions, trash. Did you know that all that is caused by paper receipts? We get them when buying something or using services. In Korea alone, more than 10 billion paper receipts are issued annually. It costs over $70 million to produce them every year. But what's more serious is their toll on the environment. More than 100,000 trees are needed to produce so many paper receipts. With a single paper receipt resulting in 1.8 grams of greenhouse gas emissions, about 23,000 tons of greenhouse gases are emitted annually because of paper receipts. It takes 940,000 pine trees to eliminate them. Moreover, paper receipts are not recyclable because they are printed on chemically treated paper. If you care about the